Ungodly amount of time since I've done the last podcast. I believe this is number 3 or so of not really talking. This time we're going to be doing kind of a more music themed sort of thing. Not necessarily reviews, but more of a discussion about music, and we can get into specifics in a little bit. But I currently have with me
Jessi,
and she is our residential music connoisseur, French words of the sort, and I'm gonna hand it off to her because she definitely has more organization than I do.
I brainstormed because at home over break, I had kind of thought like, oh, well, what could we do for the first podcast? It being finally 2016, first podcast of the calendar year. So I was like, what better to do than the best records? Mine, personally, of 2015. Like, not necessarily composition-wise, but I choose my favorites based on the ones that I can't stop listening to or can't stop, like, walking around on a daily basis, humming the lyrics to
blasting out your headphones.
Yeah, like, just kind of, they're always kind of in the background of things. And my first one, probably the one that's most well known, it's been nominated for a Grammy this year, is Alabama Shake's Sound and Color. And it's just, I had a chance to see them live in Chicago before they released the record, and they played the majority of the songs off of it. And I really loved how well the tracks flowed together. It almost kind of felt like you were just almost dreaming, but like there was this kind of spite that like Brittany Howard just kind of brings with her vocals, and I don't know how she does it throughout a 12-track record, but she keeps this kind of theme of this kind of like ethereal, like almost like you're floating, but still kind of conscious in the lyrics and the content, and it was extremely well mixed. I was so happy to see them get recognized this year for the Grammys, although I'm not sure who's going to win that, but I'm hoping it's them because I loved that record. The second, kind of within the same genre, not so much rock and roll, not such a harsh sound, but more, it kind of shot me back like several decades before I was born, was Leon Bridges' first record, Coming Home.
God.
And I've been listening to this record since it came out. I bought the LP version for Christmas, or I got it for Christmas.
On vinyl, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
clarity.
It's the sound going, you listen to it digitally, and it's this really rich, very smooth sound. Yeah. And then you put it on a record, and it expands, and it just, like, you can feel it, like, hit the walls of the room, and it just kind of fills the space, and it's definitely an entire record where every song you can dance to in one way or another, where, like, my favorites were probably Twistin' and Groovin', which is the 9th track on the record, and Smooth Sailin'. And then you have River, which he just released a beautiful video for yesterday.
Yeah, we were watching that. That was, like, just the way it was shot, it felt like a film on its own.
Yeah.
And the song, like...
It tells such a good story.
Yeah.
With minimal lyrics, and he kind of lets the music speak for itself. And that's a really long song. I mean, the video is pretty long. They recorded a separate version, I think, for the video. But the song itself is almost 4 minutes long, which is, for a song that slow, it's kind of
like, you would think you'd get bored, but it just carries you along.
It just carries you along. It's definitely a song that you can kind of fall into, and, like, it would repeat and you wouldn't know it. Like, it flows so well with the rest of the record, even though it's a lot slower than the rest of the record, but it has such a good story, and I think that's what he does very well, is he tells stories throughout his songs, and he keeps them really short and simple. but also adds this really like rich sound.
It feels so cohesive because it's like it comes together and it's still every time like this one small story ends, you want another one. And
Yeah.
like, okay, I'll just
Yeah,
give it
and
to
you're
you.
like, it's awesome, and you're like, yes, this is what I wanted. He did a Tiny Desk concert with NPR a couple months ago, and I watched it probably like 15 times, and I was so excited because I love watching them perform live and seeing what each artist will do with the limited space and like how they'll set up. And he had almost a full band, I think. In that tiny cube, and he fills up a space. He has a great presence while still being kind of reserved, and I think that's what more modern music now is kind of missing.
Yeah.
Where you have like there's not a lot of really soft spoken artists out there. Like you see a lot of people like like Kanye West is out there like promoting his stuff like extremely all over the internet. And he just kind of came up out of nowhere. Like,
I have a question though.
Yeah.
Do you think an artist like this that is so soft spoken, kind of like not necessarily off the beaten path, but more, I would say, nostalgic for a lot of people because it's a throwback to a different era.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a certain medium that appreciates them more, like someone who buys vinyls and enjoys that like really personal experience? Do you think?
Yeah, I think it could be. I think it started out really niche, like the people who listened to this kind of genre beforehand, and were like the nostalgia value, like it threw them back to another time. And I think, but I also think as it expanded, as he got more radio play, and he did NPR, he did other radio shows, he went on tour. Hopefully, he'll be doing some festivals over the summer. But I think as he kind of expanded, he appealed to a younger audience or a different audience who may have not been too familiar with that kind of genre or that kind of, sound, and appealing it more because he brings it back, but he also modernizes it, which is really interesting. So I think hopefully I'm really excited for his second record, even though this one's only maybe 6 months old, 7 months old. But I'm hoping that he'll continue to just kind of grow throughout his career because he's amazing. And I'd really like to see him do really, really big things. And I think, I just have one more. I don't know how well known this band is, but I've been following them for quite some time. And it's The Maine. They released a record earlier this year, I want to say right around April, called American Candy. And this band never ceases to amaze me with whatever they release. I think they've been a band for almost 7 years, and they've impressed me with every single record they've released because they've tweaked their sound a little bit, but they've tweaked it to do what they want, and they've brought back this kind of core, like, rock and roll, but like not too harsh of a rock and roll.
Would you say like they like evolved? Or have they like kind of changed what's come at them through the industry?
Yeah, I think they've changed what's come at them through the industry because they released a full length and then they were signed onto a major label. And then the record that they released at the major label, I don't think they got a lot of say in. They didn't, with the track listing, the sound wasn't exactly what they wanted. So with the next record they released after that, that was titled Pioneer, they kind of opened their own like branch of the label that they were signed to and did everything almost independently. And then after that record, they created their own management company, recording company called 8123 and recorded their entire next record called Forever Halloween on like completely independently, released it independently, toured independently, and what they've been able to do while like keeping their fan base and expanding their fan base has been amazing to me. Like that gives me hope for a lot of independent musicians in a world where like 75%, 80% of music is owned by 3 companies now worldwide. And like it gives me a lot of hope that they can still they can still support themselves with their fans completely independent of any label that's not themselves.
Do you feel like a lot of musicians are scared of being independent because it's such like a pressure?
It's a risk. It's definitely a risk, but I think it was a risk they were willing to take. But I think a lot of artists are afraid of it. just because it's such a big monetary risk to where you either go independent and it works and you work with the right independents, the right people within like the independent industry.
There's definitely like there's a market for people who seek to go off that way, but I think it's kind of, it's funny to think that before being independent was such like a taboo thing to do. Like you were with that big company along with everyone else, but I feel like there's so many different channels now. There's, especially with how like much variety there is for forums to put your music out on.
Yeah.
Like people, even outside of this particular genre, just they go online and they set up a GoFundMe for a tour.
Yeah.
And it's actually possible.
And it works. Like sometimes it works, and that blows my mind because like. You know, like, even 20 years ago, that wasn't possible. Like, you couldn't get anywhere without a manager or a label.
And now you can be all of the things you want.
Yeah, and that makes it, like, that can either make or break you. It's all about now how you, as an artist or you as a band, choose to kind of use the internet and, like, social media as a platform for your band. And that could either really help or hurt you, because I think it's also, there's so much out there. There's like, new stuff coming out every day. So you can either like hit it big, but there's also a chance that you get lost in the stream of endless like things that are just constantly coming out. Which is, so the music industry, I think it's shifting. I kind of want it to shift because I don't really like the idea of 3 companies owning the majority of media. I think music should be a very personal thing, a very, like...
The monopoly should stay on the board game.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Because I think the more, like, one company owns so many artists and so many labels, like sub-labels that, like, yeah, we're independent because we operate independently of the parent company, but we're still owned by this giant corporation. And then that's why, like, I think I haven't really listened to the radio in years because there's the same 4 or 5 songs from
because it's a system that like it pushes the songs that need that replay value.
Yeah, that they take big money to make, and then because this artist has so much money behind them, they have the money to promote, to get radio play. So now, like you were saying, with all the different mediums, like radio play is not as necessary as it was before. Because you can SoundCloud, Spotify, Pandora, like
all these especially like Spotify, like anyone can get an account and then just be like, I'll listen to what my friends listen to, and that's immediately like free advertisement for that artist. Yeah, and it's free publicity. And then like somebody tells their friends, or you see the little thing on the side, and you're like, oh, so and so's listening to this. I've never heard of them. And you click it and listen and like it, and then somebody else sees, and it's a chain reaction. So I don't think radio play is as necessary as it has been in the past. At all. Do you have any more points that you want to hit on, or? I don't think so. I think we'll wait for the next points for the next podcast. All right. Did you hear that? Next meeting will be another one, so I can't lie now. All right. High five. That was fun. It was. This was Jessi Graves. Do you have anything you want to plug, like social media? My Twitter is at Jessi Graves, Jessi Graves, like the ones that you dig. That's the one I'm usually on the most, so feel free to follow me if you want to. All right. Signing off, guys. Bye.